Good morning, class. About time I get around to making another video, huh? So my ear's getting a little bit better. It's about 90%, I would say. I still have a lovely cotton ball in my ear. It's bothering me, but I'm getting there. But I did want to restart for the lectures because I have had a couple of students that have emailed regarding, when the next lecture was going to be and that you guys find these helpful. So this week, what we're going to be talking about is income, wealth, inequality trends with sociological perspectives. Now, this is one of my favorite chapters to teach because a lot of times we equate ourselves with saying that we don't have a lot of money. Maybe a friend will ask us out to dinner or to see a movie, and you may respond with, "Oh, I can't go. I'm too broke," right? Or "I don't have any money left. I'm on a budget," right? And so we start equating being broke, not able to go out and enjoy things, because again, money is very important, right? Money is actually what really makes our world go round. One of the pictures that you're going to see is that I always like to start off with, right, is what is the definition of poverty in the United States? Are we truly poor here in the United States? If we compare ourselves to different nations, say example, third world nations. Now, one thing we have to remember in sociology is that there are three main things that we need to survive. If we have those three things, then we are not considered to be in poverty. One is clean water, right? We need to have clean, nutritious water where we're able to drink and not get sick. However, we're starting to see that there's a lot of contamination in our waters, right? If you've been watching the news within the last couple months. The other thing that we need to also look at is a home, right? We need to have some type of shelter where we're able to sleep wherever we're able to go home to, right? So a shelter. The other thing too that we need to have in order to survive is clothes, right? That's one of the things that we need. Not only do we need clothes for various and pretty much obvious reasons, but it is against the law, right, to be walking around nude out in the street. If we are, not only are we going to be we're being deviant, right? We're breaking a law, but it's not socially accepted as well. So with Thanksgiving coming up next month, right? A lot of us get really antsy when it comes to sales, right? Because when we think sales, we think, oh my goodness, we're going to be saving so much money. I'm going to stand and pretty much lose out on my Thanksgiving day because I'm going to stand in line and I'm going to get that great deal on that telephone or a television, an iPad, or the $20 vacuum, right? Or what I like, well, I like going, I won't lie. I love going to, Black Friday sales, right? But again, how is it that 363, I'll say that because of Black Thursday and Black Friday, a lot of us claim that we're too poor, that we cannot afford to do things. But miraculously speaking, those 2 days, we just live it up, right? All of a sudden, we can't afford that, that TV that's, 73 inches, 74 inches, whatever size they may be, right? But then again, the rest of the time, we complain that we do not have money. Now we're going to be talking a little bit more about Black Friday because, I remember, I think I wrote it in my announcement in the instructions for this week. I remember like not knowing what was going to be on sale, and I would sit there watching the Macy's Thanksgiving parade and circling, right? What I wanted my mom or, to buy me at the store. Nowadays, we're starting to see within the last I believe this is the fourth or the fifth year, now retail stores have thought, hey, let's open on Thanksgiving Day. Now we're starting to see that a lot of families are shifting their Thanksgiving dinners to Thanksgiving brunch or breakfast because we are then able to say, okay, I've had Thanksgiving, now we're going to go shopping, right? So if we were in family and marriage, we would then have that discussion of, well, then how do Black Friday sales on Thanksgiving interfere with family marriage interaction, right? Are we making it a point to not spend time with our families and going shopping instead? Or do we all go shopping together, right? Or we don't go shopping at all. And we may see Thanksgiving as being a day of family time, right? So again, as we get back to the whole issue of poverty, in the next slide, I do post two pictures of, right? It says poverty, the US versus the world. What is the difference? We see the family malnourished. We see the little boy, standing in front of their housings, right? Their homes. And again, it's very rare that we go to anywhere in the United States and we see this level of poverty, right? So again, when we talk about the definition of poverty, there is a drastic difference between poverty in the United States and poverty around the world. So, what is poverty? It's the minimum level of food requirements for a family or an individual that is calculated. So, the figure is then tripled to cover over minimum needs like clothing, housing, and medical care, right? So again, you need food, nutrition, clean water, shelter, and clothing. Now, statistics, since the year 2000, we've lost about 10% of our middle class jobs. In the year 2000, there were about 72 million middle class jobs in the United States. But today, there are only about 65 million middle class jobs. Meanwhile, our population is getting larger. So our population is getting larger, but what we're starting to see is that especially after the 2007 recession, that a lot of individuals were losing their jobs. Now, it was during this time that a lot of individuals that were losing their jobs that many had to turn to government assistance. Now, you have to keep in mind that before 2007, before that recession, and again, it becoming a social problem of many people losing their jobs and not being able to find a new one, it was very stereotypical, very taboo on who received government assistance, right? To say that you were collecting unemployment or that you were on WIC or that you were collecting food stamps or EBT cards that we have now, there was a taboo again, and we judge and we look at those people and say, oh, you must be lazy. You don't want to work, you don't want to work. You just want to sit at home and watch TV and drink and smoke, etc., right? But again, after the recession of 2007, we saw that shift in terms of more acceptance, in terms of, applying for government assistance, right? Because that is what we needed to turn to for help. So 62% of nations poor live in large cities. Single divorced parents and children. Women are significantly higher risk than men to be poor. Say, for example, you have two different couples, okay? Couple number one, wife and husband work, okay? Both went to school, both have, a job. Say, for example, something were to happen to the male figure, right? Well, the female went to school, possibly maybe had a job or career before having kids or while having kids, right? She's more likely not to go on government assistance because she would be able to make a higher wage than, say, for example, a different couple where the mom did not attend school, where the mom did not have a job before, and then suddenly finds herself in the position where she has to take care of herself and possibly, if she has children, her children too. So that's why we see a lot of the times when they put the bullet points in terms of, who lives in poverty, like concentrations, right? How it says on our slide, they live in large cities, they live near the Texas-Mexican border, right? Why it shows that women are significantly higher risk than men. The underclass is a population of people concentrated in an inner city who are persistently poor, unemployed, and dependent on welfare. Again, this is according to our textbook. A lot of times we have that misconception in terms of welfare, right? One of the discussions that I like to have in class is, a lot of people would argue that welfare government assistance is a good thing, right? If you need help, if you need assistance, it's there, right? A lot of us, when we're working, are paying into this, right? Especially like in employment. When my husband was in the military and he left after 8 years of service, we suddenly found ourselves that we had no medical insurance, right? TRICARE was over since he had gone out of the military. Well, we found ourselves with 2 children under the age of 5, myself and my husband, and no insurance. Well, we applied for, government assistance because we needed insurance, right? Because the cost of insurance by itself was skyrocketing. They wanted $5,000 a month for the 4 of us, right? Well, we were rejected. We were told that because I was an adjunct faculty member that I made too much. And my husband wasn't working. So you start to see, are there glitches? Are there problems in terms of our welfare system, in terms of government assistance? The other discussion that we have in my face-to-face class is, does government assistance hurt people to the point where we do not feel motivated to do better for ourselves? Do we feel sometimes content with receiving government assistance and receiving that help and thinking, okay, I'm fine where we are, if I make a little bit more, we're going to lose this assistance. Is it worth it, right? So it's a very, we debate about it all the time in terms, right? In terms of poverty, how can we thrive and go up the social mobility ladder? What happens if we do go down the social mobility? Is EBT, does that help? Does government assistance help hurt certain individuals, right? So social stratification is the hierarchy arrangement of social classes, caste, and strata within a society, right? So social classes would be pretty much the whole idea of middle class, low class, higher class. A lot of people would say that due to, again, the recession, right? Due to the recession, that we may not have social classes anymore, right? I had mentioned before, right? Think of social stratification as a pyramid, right? At the very top, the top of the pyramid is very, very narrow, right? And that's what we call the bourgeoisie. Very fancy term, right? Bourgeoisie is pretty much those that own the means of production. They're the big money makers, right? CEOs, the presidents of these companies, right? As we go down the social ladder, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what we call the proletariat. The proletariat are the working class, right? Social stratification is a hierarchy of positions, right? In regards to the economic production. Patterns of social stratification. The divisions in labor contributed to greater social efficiency. Different people typically perform different tasks, and as a result, they occupy different statuses. So this would mean, right, say for example, an individual goes to school and becomes a doctor, right? Well, doctors, we see them with respect. We see them with prestige. We look up to them, right? They are the individuals that we place our lives in their hands, knowing that if we're not feeling well, right, that they're going to fix us. That's the point, right? We know that they've gone to school. We know that they've put in so much research, time, dedication, and therefore they occupy the status of making, significant high amount of money, right? Now, say for example, we have someone that works in retail. Well, as we know, in terms of social efficiency, in terms of different tasks, it's very different, right? Being a doctor and also working in retail. We're going to, maybe when we meet that person, right, not no, I wouldn't say treat him bad, right? But treat him differently in the way that we would someone that holds a higher status. Economic standing, wealth is what we have at our own particular time. Our income, that's money that we look forward to, right? Either at the middle of the month or at the end of the month, right? Today's actually payday for a lot of teachers, right? Income is what allows us to find out where we are in terms of our economic standing, right? Prestige is social respect, admiration. Again, the prestige, it seems like the more years you put into school, and not necessarily having to go to school. That's another example. That's another discussion we're going to have when we get into education. Do you truly have to go to college, gain a higher education in order to be successful in life, to have prestige, to have social respect, admiration, recognition, right? We're going to talk about that as well as power, right? Let's see. In terms of patterns of social stratification, we're going to talk about open systems, closed systems. Open system would be a system where people can change their status. So one of the examples that I give for open system would be Steve Jobs, right? Steve Jobs, where he was not wealthy as he was growing up. And then suddenly, as he grew older, right, with technology, he founded the biggest technology company, right? And then made him one of the wealthiest people in the world, right? Another one would be J.K. Rowling, right? The author of the Harry Potter series. She was actually living in poverty, on government assistance in London, living in her car. And she started writing the Harry Potter books for her kids to keep them entertained. She actually sent in her first manuscript to a publishing house after a friend began to read the books. It got rejected, and then she sent it to a different publishing, and the rest is history, right? But that first publishing house feels pretty dumb, don't they, right? Now, closed system is a system where people have difficult changing their status. So the example that I give here would be the mobility of French society before the French Revolution, pretty much where, everyone had their own ascribed status and group that they were born into, and it was very difficult that you could not shift in terms of mobility or stratification. Marx believes that the key to social stratification in capitalist societies was division between those who own and control crucial means. So what he's saying, right, is that everyone does have to have their own, their own function in society. If there's no function, right, then it's going to fall apart. So everyone has to do their role in their job that they do. Say, for example, what if the doctor and a retail salesperson made the same exact money, right? Made the same exact wage money. Well, it is money, right? Then what, right? If we really wanted equality, then every single job throughout the United States was going to make the same amount of money, right? Actors, singers, everyone, right? Athletes, everyone, right? Well, then what would happen in that case, right? If everyone had equal pay, not only would it be going into the whole like communist, right? Way, but think of the motivation. Again, we would have the lack of motivation to further want to learn more. A lot of times we see that people will have a change in career as they get older. We're starting to see that we have older students in our classroom that are studying towards a new career. Well, that's motivation, right? That is motivating us to do better for ourselves, by going back to school. Now, credit cards. This is one of the issues that I love to bring into the classroom as well. And I always ask students, how many of you guys have credit cards? Now, depending on the age range, right? If it's students right out of high school, not so many of you have credit cards, right? But as you're going to know, as you get older, credit cards can be a good and a bad thing, right? I remember being in high school, even in college, right? And credit cards were not as big as they are now. And I remember having cash and going, to the store and purchasing something and handing over that 20 bill and going, oh, now I'm going to have $2 for the entire week. What am I going to do with the $2, right? Well, there's some kind of, reality check that you have when you're physically handing that bill, right, in order to pay. Now, with a credit card, how amazing is it to say, like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to buy myself a Dior bag, right? Or I'm going to buy myself a Gucci bag, and then say, you know what, I think I can pay it off at the end of the month because I am going to get paid this month, right? Now, is it going to be easier to hand that big bill, right? I mean the money itself, or is it going to be easy to just swipe? Easy to swipe, right? Because you swipe and you're like, I got my bag, right? Instead of paying cash and then going, oh, now I have no money for the rest of the month or for a while, right? Now, the bad thing with credit cards is that it's, again, so easy to swipe that we think, or we may think, okay, as I'm swiping, I'm going to pay it off, right? But then we forget to think that how many times have we said, okay, this month I'm going to save this amount of money, and then the refrigerator breaks, or your washer and dryer breaks, right? You get a flat tire, your car breaks down, right? Now, if I bought that Dior bag and now I have to buy a new washing machine, now I owe the bag and the washing machine, right? And then that's when debt may start accumulating, right? So here it says total owned by average U.S. household carrying this type of debt. Credit cards, 15,310. Student loans, a lot of people will say that student loans is not seen as a debt because, again, you think, say, for example, you have a car, you get a car, and if you have payments on it, well, your car helps you get around, right? If you are renting a house or paying a mortgage on a house or an apartment, you're living there, right? So that's a different type of debt. Just like you would say student loans would be a different type of debt, right? So again, it may depend in terms of what debt you may have. According to the Gallup survey, 2.6 among Americans with credit cards, the average number of cards owned is about 3.7. Now, if you're interested in listening to someone that has a lot of interest and a lot of advice on money, I'm obsessed with Susie Orman. I think she's amazing. I've been listening to her for the past, oh my goodness, since I was in high school. But she brings really great points in terms of, how to save money, how to pay off credit card debts. Because again, it is good to have credit because if you want to purchase a house, if you want to purchase a car, you need to show that you do have a line of credit and you're showing that you can pay off your credit cards, right? And then that gets into credit scores as well. Now, from that discussion, we come into the question that I'm asking you guys this week in discussion. Is it fair that a professional athlete, actor, singers make more money compared to a teacher, doctor, military, right? And a lot of times, as we're seeing in discussion, a lot of you will say it's not fair, that this football player that throws a little pigskin, ball in the air, and they make millions and millions of dollars. But yet we have teachers that teach our future, our children, right? That teach us our discipline, that we are studying for us in being the next generation, in leading those careers, right? It's not fair, right? But again, you're going to notice the different links that I've posted in the discussion as a reply to many of your discussions. We pay into that. We buy into it, right? How many times have we gone to a concert? How many times have we bought the DVD? How many times, last weekend I was in Vegas. We went to a concert in Laughlin, my husband and I, and we stopped in Vegas on the way home. Almost every single person had on their favorite football jersey on, right? That's one of the indications to why professional athletes make more money than teachers, right? Or members in the military, right? Because again, we buy into this whole idea of consumerism, right? We're going to be talking about the functionalist theory of stratification. So again, the functionalists, they believe, right, that it's beneficial for society. The profession of being a dentist, right, they went to school a lot, therefore, they receive the pay and they receive the status, right? It's power, it's reward, it's this functional importance because they are helping us, right, to thrive and to continue living, right? Conflict theorists, again, they see the inequality, that it is not fair, right? That so many people, are, well, not so many people, but the 1%, right? That make the wealth compared to the rest of us that work, right? So who gets ahead, right? Some of the questions that you can ask yourself: what is the income payoff to college education? Is this payoff declining or increasing? Now, one of the things that you're going to notice is, depending how the economy is doing, we see that there's more students coming into college. This semester, there seems to be a correlation with the presidential election on how many students are going into college actually this fall. So it'll be really interesting to see why there is a correlation. But statewide, we've actually seen a decline in the fall semester on enrollment in colleges around statewide. So can a person that works still be considered to be poor? Why or why not, right? How underpaid are we? A couple of years ago, if you guys remember, many employees at the McDonald's in San Francisco were protesting that they did not make enough money working at McDonald's and that they were demanding a higher pay raise. Well, McDonald's in turn approached them and said, well, we are paying you enough money. You are aware that if we were to raise your salary, we would then have to raise our prices on our menu to make up the difference for your pay raise. Additionally, McDonald's on the employee website put together a lesson on how to budget your money month to month. Now, a lot of people were so upset because they were saying, wait, you can't tell me how I spend my money, what I do with my money. I'm just saying that I don't make enough money for my ends meet, right? So can a person that works, right, still be considered poor? Now, one of the examples that I always bring in is college adjunct faculty. Now, the reason I bring this in is because this is actually a very hot topic right now in colleges around the United States. Actually, you'll start to see from the video clip and the article that adjunct faculty are not paid sufficiently enough. Now, the other thing too is that when it comes to college adjunct faculty, we do not receive benefits, and that's another very big thing. Now, one thing that you'll notice is when you're an adjunct faculty, working at one school, teaching one class is not going to be sufficient to be a monthly income. A lot of times, instructors, college adjunct faculty members will in fact have to teach at many different schools, teaching many different courses. And again, depending semester to semester, it may depend, on availability on how many courses, are available. Now, I have a friend that has a PhD in English, and she has not been able to find a job, in full-time work. And so to adjust her income, she actually works at a Starbucks during the day and in the evenings to help make ends meet, right? So here we think, oh, these are, our educators of the future, they're helping us. But again, we're starting to see, just like the previous slide, can a person that works still be considered to live in poverty? Then we go towards to the American dream. So, what exactly is the American dream? This is another question that we have in the discussion board in terms of, what is the American dream to us? And you're going to notice that it varies person to person, right? A lot of times when we are thinking of the American class system, we self-place ourselves, and we sometimes say that we're in a higher class than we already are, right? Oftentimes, we may want to not show people that we're not doing well financially. And so we may say like, oh yeah, we're doing great. And, you're buying, the latest iPhone 7, and, whatever it may be. And again, why do we do that? To where we may try to show people that we're doing great in terms of social mobility, right? And social stratification, but yet we're not, right? What are we trying to show at times? So social mobility, one of the things that we see is pretty much, is it easy to climb up the social ladder? Is it difficult to go down the ladder? We see that it's easier to come down, right, than to come up. The other thing that I talked about, and I actually placed an article, is, are we enabling our poor to stay poor? And so this goes along with the discussion I said earlier in terms of government assistance, for example. The other article that I bring in are about millennials. A lot of people would argue that our recent generation that we have now are very much enabled. A lot of us may know someone that, say for example, does not want to work, lives at home with their parents, may not have the drive to do better for herself. So how do we treat this generation? Are they spoiled? Do they get everything that they receive? Do they just ask their parents and they receive without working for it? Are we losing our work ethic? Pretty much is what it comes down to. Do we still have the same work ethic that we used to, say for example, like in the 50s, right? To where you have that satisfaction of, okay, I earned this money, I worked for it, I bought this car, right? And I'm going to see it differently than if someone gave me a car, right? So the differences. Pretty much the end of the PowerPoint presentation is just going through, different things like a computer. Don't you guys love like the 1980s like laptop this lady's holding, right? Going to Starbucks, right? One of the things that a lot of people will say, if you're trying to cut down on budget and you're trying to save money, make your own coffee every once in a while and not go out and buy like $5 worth, of a Frappuccino, right? As much as I love my Starbucks, but it'd be cheaper if I made it at home, for example, right? So with that, I was going to say, do not forget that you have a news reflection that is due by the end of, news reflection is not due this week. Sorry, news reflection is due next week, October 9th. So I would recommend for you to go back to week 1 module, look at the instructions and the examples. Let me know if you guys have any questions regarding your news reflection that is due next week. Additionally, I posted your study guide midterm 2 in this week's module. I did that a couple of days ago. So again, I hope you guys are enjoying the course. We're almost halfway through. You guys figure tomorrow is the 1st of October, so it is going really, really fast in terms of time. Okay, so enjoy your week, and I will talk to you guys next week.